Picture this: three dirty cops surrounding what they think is a helpless homeless man in a dark alley. Rain pounding the pavement, the smell of corruption thick in the air. They demand protection money, kick over his coffee, threaten violence. But then, the homeless man stands up. And in that moment, these corrupt officers realize they've made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because that helpless man, that's Chuck Norris. And what happens next will blow your mind. Here's what you need to know. For 6 months, the Dallas Police Department had been dealing with a nightmare scenario. Three officers, not heroes but predators, had been systematically targeting the city's most vulnerable population, the homeless, people with nowhere to run, no one to call, no voice to fight back. These weren't just bad cops taking bribes. This was something far more sinister. Officer Kane, a 40-year-old brute with scarred knuckles that told stories of violence. Officer Martinez, cold-eyed and calculating, who saw the homeless as easy marks. And their ringleader, Sergeant Brooks, a man who'd turned his badge into a weapon of extortion. Every night they'd prowl the streets like wolves, demanding protection money from people who barely had enough to eat. $50 a week or face a beating. Sometimes they'd take it anyway, just because they could. Internal Affairs was desperate. They needed evidence. They needed someone who could get close enough to document these crimes. But here's the problem. Who volunteers to become prey? Who's willing to make themselves a target for corrupt cops with badges and guns? That's when someone suggested the impossible. Chuck Norris. Now you might be thinking, Chuck Norris going undercover? The man who can roundhouse kick a tornado? How does that even work? Well, let me tell you, the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. For this operation, Chuck Norris had to completely disappear. Not just change clothes. We're talking about becoming an entirely different person. The makeup team worked for hours. Prosthetics aged his face by 20 years. Every line, every wrinkle was crafted to perfection. Dirt was rubbed into his skin, under his nails, into every crease. His legendary beard was transformed into the scraggly facial hair of someone who'd been living rough for months. His clothes? Distressed to look like they'd been worn for a year straight. Holes in exactly the right places. Stains that told stories of sleeping in alleys and eating from dumpsters. When they were done, even Chuck's own mother wouldn't have recognized him. Chuck Norris, the martial arts legend, was gone. In his place stood Charlie Norton, a broken-down veteran with nowhere to go and no one to miss him if he disappeared. But here's what's incredible. Chuck didn't just look the part, he lived it. For 72 hours, Chuck Norris experienced true invisibility. Not the cool superhero kind, the devastating human kind. He slept on cardboard in doorways. He ate at soup kitchens. He felt the sting of people looking right through him as if he didn't exist. Hour 18 of the operation, the Riverside Underpass, known to locals as the Forgotten Mile. This is where Dallas's homeless community seeks shelter from both the weather and the law. Chuck sits against a concrete pillar, rain soaking through his threadbare jacket, holding a cardboard sign. Veteran. Anything helps. Every fiber in his body wanted to stand up, walk away, return to comfort and warmth. But these people around him, they don't have that luxury. This is their reality, every single night. During those 3 days, Chuck met people whose stories would change him forever. Maria, clean from drugs for 2 years, but unable to afford housing. Tommy, a veteran struggling with PTSD, failed by the very system that was supposed to support him. Sarah, who lost everything to medical bills after her daughter's cancer treatment. These weren't statistics. These were human beings, and they were about to become Chuck's motivation for what came next. Day 2 of the operation. Chuck's cover was perfect. Too perfect, because that's when they showed up. 3 figures emerged from the shadows like something out of a nightmare. Officer Kane, his scarred knuckles catching the streetlight. Officer Martinez, scanning the area like a predator sizing up prey. And Sergeant Brooks, the alpha of this corrupt pack, leading the charge. Hidden cameras were rolling. Audio equipment was capturing every word. But nothing could have prepared anyone for the pure evil these men displayed. Well, fresh meat, Brooks announces, his voice dripping with malice as he approaches Chuck. Chuck keeps his head down, playing his part perfectly. "Just trying to stay dry, officers," he responds, his voice transformed into something raspy and defeated. But these predators aren't interested in helping. They're here to feed. "See, that's the thing about staying dry in our city," Brooks continues, circling Chuck like a shark. "It costs extra." Without warning, crack! He kicks Chuck's coffee cup, sending the precious warm liquid splashing across the concrete. For someone living on the streets, that coffee might be the only warmth they get all night. But to Brooks, it's just a power play. Here's where it gets really ugly. Martinez steps forward, his dead eyes fixed on Chuck's backpack. "Protection fee is $50 a week. You look like you can afford it." $50. To you and me, that might be dinner at a restaurant. To someone living on the streets, that could be the difference between eating and starving for a week. "Please, I don't have anything," Chuck pleads, still maintaining his character flawlessly. But these cops aren't taking no for an answer. Kane's hand moves toward his baton, a weapon that's supposed to protect citizens, now being used to threaten them. "Then maybe we need to search you," Kane growls. "Make sure you're not holding out on us." This is it, the moment 6 months of investigation had been building toward. These corrupt officers are about to commit multiple felonies on camera: extortion, assault, abuse of power. But Chuck Norris faces an impossible choice. If he maintains his cover and lets them abuse him, he preserves the investigation, but risks serious injury. If he fights back, he blows months of work and lets these predators escape justice. Unless there's a third option. "Stand up, garbage," Brooks orders, reaching down to grab Chuck. And that's when everything changes. Chuck's hand moves with lightning speed, catching Brooks's wrist in what looks like a gentle grip, but feels like a steel trap. The transformation is instantaneous and terrifying. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Chuck says, his voice now clear, strong, commanding. Gone is the broken homeless man. In his place stands someone far more dangerous than these corrupt cops could have ever imagined. The three officers step back, hands instinctively moving toward their weapons. "What the hell?" Martinez begins, but Chuck cuts him off. "Officers Kane, Martinez, and Sergeant Brooks. Badge numbers 4,471, 3,389, and 2,156 respectively." The blood drains from their faces. How does this homeless man know their badge numbers? "I know about the Henderson shakedown last month, the Williams beating, the Morrison robbery, all 63 incidents over the past 6 months. Brooks's voice comes out as barely a whisper. Who are you?" Chuck steps into the light, and despite the incredible disguise, his identity becomes unmistakable. The legend himself, revealed in the most unexpected way possible. Someone who believes that those who protect and serve shouldn't prey on those they've sworn to protect. Panic sets in. These corrupt cops realize they're not dealing with a helpless victim anymore. They're facing Chuck Norris, and they've just threatened him, extorted him, and revealed their crimes on camera. Brooks reaches for his gun. Big mistake. What happened next lasted exactly 17 seconds. 17 seconds that would be replayed on news channels around the world for weeks. Brooks's hand clears his holster. Chuck moves. First action, a precision strike to Brooks's wrist. Not brutal, not bone-breaking, just perfectly calculated to disarm without permanent damage. The gun goes flying, clattering harmlessly across the wet pavement. Kane lunges forward, baton raised high. But Chuck isn't there anymore. A subtle sidestep, a gentle redirection of momentum, and Kane's own force sends him crashing into a concrete pillar. He crumples to the ground, dazed but uninjured. Martinez tries to run, one fluid motion from Chuck. The officer's own handcuffs, transformed into an improvised bola, tangle Martinez's legs mid-stride. He hits the pavement hard. 3 corrupt cops, 17 seconds. Justice served with surgical precision. Standing over the defeated officers, Chuck delivers the line that would become legendary. Dallas PD Internal Affairs. "You're all under arrest." Right on cue, sirens wail in the distance. Backup arrives exactly as planned. The media explosion was immediate. Martial arts legend exposes police corruption in dramatic undercover sting. The footage went viral within hours. 3 corrupt officers taken down by a man they thought was helpless. The legal consequences were swift and severe. Kane and Martinez each received 5-year prison sentences. Sergeant Brooks, as the ringleader, got 8 years behind bars. But the impact went far beyond individual justice. The entire Dallas Police Department underwent a transformation. A comprehensive retraining program was implemented, focusing on serving all citizens with dignity and respect. New protocols were established for handling complaints from vulnerable populations. The Riverside Underpass received increased funding for security and services. A dedicated police substation was installed, not to harass but to protect. But perhaps the most powerful moment came during Chuck's interview afterward. When asked why he put himself through such an ordeal, his answer revealed something deeper than martial arts mastery. "Those 3 days taught me more about courage than any movie role ever could," Chuck reflected. "Real courage isn't about knowing how to fight. It's about having nowhere to go, nothing to eat, and still getting up every morning with dignity." He continued, his voice thick with emotion. "The people I met out there, Maria, Tommy, Sarah, they're the real heroes. They face corruption and violence every night with no backup, no weapons, no way to fight back. They survive on strength of spirit alone." Looking directly into the camera, Chuck delivered his final message. "People always ask me what my greatest achievement is. The movies, the TV shows, the martial arts championships. But those 3 days living in the shadows of society reminded me that real strength isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you can protect." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves dignity. And everyone deserves protection, especially from those who've forgotten what their badges really mean. The operation's success rippled far beyond Dallas. Police departments across the country reviewed their protocols for dealing with homeless populations. Training programs were updated. Accountability measures were strengthened. But for Chuck Norris, the real victory was personal. He discovered that true heroism isn't about being stronger than your enemies. It's about being strong enough to stand up for those who can't defend themselves. So the next time you see someone society has forgotten, remember this story. Remember that everyone has value, everyone deserves respect, and sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Chuck Norris didn't just go undercover that night. He uncovered something far more valuable than evidence of corruption. He rediscovered what it truly means to serve others. Because when Chuck Norris fights injustice, injustice never saw it coming. And that's a story that proves heroes aren't born from strength alone. They're forged in the moments when they choose to protect those who can't protect themselves.